That sound. You know what it means. For 8 seasons, it meant dragons and thrones and the fate of the world. Entire armies clashed to the rhythm of that melody. Kings fell, kingdoms burned. But in episode 4 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, the Game of Thrones theme plays for a hedge knight who sleeps in ditches and talks to his horses. A man sitting in a dungeon in the rain trying to pet a rat through the bars of his window because it's the only living thing near him, and it has never meant more than it does right now. Episode 4, titled Seven, is the moment this show stops asking for permission to sit at the table with the rest of the franchise and takes the seat.
And the no true knight among you!
To understand why that theme hits the way it does, why it lands harder here than in any battle or coronation, you have to understand how the show spent 3 episodes earning it. That story starts in a dungeon with a man and a rat in the rain. Before any trial, before any betrayal, before a prince of the realm rides against his own blood for a stranger, there is Dunk, alone. The rain hasn't stopped since they threw him in here. The torchlight dances off the damp stone, and for a moment, if you're not paying attention, the flickers on the wall look almost like stars. A rat crawls across the windowsill, and Dunk, this enormous man, this man who just beat a Targaryen prince with his bare fists, reaches out gently to touch it. That gesture tells you everything about who Sir Duncan the Tall really is. A man whose first instinct, even at his lowest, is to reach toward another living thing rather than withdraw. That instinct is the same thing that made him take in a bald orphan boy as a squire, the same thing that made him charge across a field to stop Aerion from breaking a puppeteer's fingers, the same thing that will pull the heir to the Iron Throne off his chair and onto a battlefield. But we're not there yet. First, the door opens, and the person who walks through it is both the best thing and the worst thing that could happen to Dunk right now. Egg enters wearing Targaryen colors, royal fabrics. The disguise is gone. The boy who wanted to be ordinary has been dragged back into being a prince. The shaved head that was supposed to hide his identity is now just a bald child in silk, standing among the family he tried to escape. The look on Dunk's face when he sees him, the way his whole body stiffens and his eyes go flat, that's the look of a man realizing his only friend in the world was never who he thought. My uncle says I must beg your forgiveness for deceiving you. My uncle, the hand of the king, the heir to the Iron Throne.
My uncle says I must beg your forgiveness for deceiving you.
Dunk doesn't explode. That would be simpler. Instead, Peter Claffey does something far more devastating. He goes quiet, cold. He eats his bread and barely looks at the boy. When he does speak, the words come out measured and precise, which is how you know they're cutting deep. It's just a bit of bad luck we found each other, isn't it?
It's just a bit of bad luck we found each other, isn't it?
The hurt Claffey puts into that single line is the kind of acting that doesn't announce itself. It just sits in your chest and aches. Because Dunk thought he was chosen. He thought this clever little boy looked at all the knights in Westeros and picked him. Now he's realizing that Egg would have latched on to anyone who was squireless. A donkey, as Dunk puts it. Dunk could forgive the lie. He can't forgive how ordinary it makes him feel. The fracture runs deeper than a lied-about identity, though. Both of these men are frauds. Egg pretended to be a commoner. Dunk may be pretending to be a knight. The show has never given us a flashback of Sir Arlen actually performing the knighting ceremony. They built their entire relationship on mutual deception. And the savage irony is that it might be the most honest bond either of them has ever had. Because beneath the lies, they both just wanted someone to see them as they wished they were. Across from Dunk, Dexter Sol Ansel is doing something extraordinary with nothing but his eyes. Those enormous, tear-filled eyes that carry the weight of a child who knows he's hurt the person he loves most. Ansel said there was no tear stick, no tricks. That was real emotion. He and Claffey stayed silent between takes, just holding the feeling. Egg's remorse surfaces in his gaze, in the way he physically shrinks in his oversized prince's clothing, as if the royal finery is a costume he doesn't want to be wearing. Ira Parker called Ansel a genius and a special human being. He wasn't exaggerating. Then comes the moment that reveals who Dunk is at his core. Minutes later, when he's brought before Prince Baelor to discuss his fate, Dunk is still furious with Egg, still wounded, still processing everything. The first thing out of his mouth is a defense of the boy he lied to him. He's a good boy, good squire, and he meant no harm.
He's a good boy, good squire, and he meant no harm.
Dunk can't help himself. Even in the middle of his own crisis, even talking to the heir to the Iron Throne, his instinct is to protect the kid. The same instinct that made him reach for the rat. The same instinct that will either save him or kill him before this episode is over. Baelor Targaryen is the most interesting man in Westeros, and nobody talks about him enough. Bertie Carvel plays him with a gravity that shifts the energy of every room he enters. Watch his eyes during the hearing scene, the way he side glances at Aerion while explaining legal procedures, carrying a lifetime of familial disappointment in a single look. This is someone who sees exactly what his nephew is and knows that this is the future of his house. In their private conversation, Baelor lays out Dunk's situation with surgical honesty. Aerion wants his head. Daeron, the drunk from the inn in episode 1, now suddenly sober enough to make accusations, has told Maekar that a robber knight kidnapped Egg. Tansel's puppet show, the innocent little play where a dragon was slain, will be framed as treason against the Targaryen dynasty. Baelor sees through every word of it. He knows Aerion is a sadist. He knows Daeron is a liar. He knows Dunk did exactly what a knight should do. None of it matters. Dunk struck a prince. That is a fact. Facts have consequences, even when the truth behind them is unjust. Don't all knights make the same oath to protect the innocent?
Don't all knights make the same oath to protect the innocent?
Something crosses Baelor's face. Recognition. Here is someone who actually believes the words of the oath. In a world where knighthood has become a transaction, a title traded for loyalty, a formality that means nothing, Dunk treats it as sacred. Baelor advises trial by combat, one fight, man against man, let the gods decide. But Aerion is smarter than he looks, and crueler. When Dunk stands before the lords and demands his right to trial by combat, Aerion counters with something nobody expected, a trial of 7, an ancient Andal custom so old that even Maekar, a Targaryen prince and seasoned warrior, has never heard of it. 7 against 7, a melee. Dunk must find 6 other knights willing to die alongside him. Watch Maekar in this scene. Sam Spruill plays him with a soldier's bluntness. He thinks Aerion is scared to face Dunk alone.
Are you cowering behind some 6,000-year-old Andal foolery?
And he's probably right. But Aerion is playing a different game entirely. He knows Dunk is enormous, vicious when cornered, and nearly killed him with his bare hands outside the puppet show. A trial of 7 transforms the question from, can Dunk fight, to, does anyone in Westeros care enough for a hedge knight to die alongside him? Aerion is betting the answer is no. This is the machinery of power doing what it always does in Westeros, crushing the people it's supposed to protect. The institution of knighthood exists in theory to defend the weak. Its legal apparatus can be weaponized by anyone with a crown and a grudge. Honor exists as a concept in Westeros. It just has no purchasing power when the bill comes due. Tyrion Lannister learned this same lesson decades later in King's Landing. He needed 1 champion and nearly died for lack of one. Dunk needs 6. Unlike Tyrion, he can't buy loyalty or trade on a family name. He is alone in the most literal sense. Baelor's hands are tied. The law is the law. The look he gives Dunk as the hearing ends says everything he can't. Dunk wanders out into the rain. He talks to his horses, tells them he thinks he'll die tomorrow, the way a man talks when he's accepted something terrible, quietly, without drama, the words falling out like stones into water. The tournament grounds that were so bright and colorful just days ago are now mud and wreckage. Tensel's puppet tent is destroyed. The performers have fled. The whole place looks like the morning after a battle that hasn't happened yet. Raymond Fossaway finds him, brings him in out of the rain for some food. Raymond takes him to his cousin, Sir Stephen Fossaway, who does something nobody else at Ashford has done. He volunteers. Stephen is confident, maybe too confident. He'll bring others, Lionel Baratheon, Lord Lannister, the Brute of Bracken. He says the Targaryens aren't so frightening anymore. Their dragons are dead. What are they without fire? Stephen eats an apple right down to the core and rides off into the night to gather swords. Remember the apple, it's going to matter. While Stephen is gone, Egg returns with his brother, Daeron, in tow. Daeron pulls Dunk aside for a private word, and he brings something far more unsettling than an apology. Daeron is one of those Targaryens born with something extra, a gift, a curse, whatever you want to call it. He dreams things, and his dreams come true. The books call it being a dragon dreamer. It's the same ability that saved House Targaryen from the doom of Valyria, when Daenys the Dreamer foresaw the cataclysm 12 years before it happened. Daeron has dreamed of Dunk. I have seen you, sir, and a fire and a dead dragon, a great beast with wings so large they could cover this meadow. It had fallen on top of you, but you were alive, and the dragon was dead. Dunk asks the obvious question, did I kill it? Daeron doesn't know, but his dreams are true.
Did I kill it?
That I could not say.
Somewhere in the wreckage of this prophecy is a dead dragon and a living hedge knight. Everyone, Daeron, Dunk, the audience, assumes the dead dragon is Aerion. It's the natural reading. The villain dies, the hero survives. But this is George R.R. Martin. Martin's prophecies are never wrong. They're just never kind. The dragon will indeed fall on Dunk. When it does, the audience will realize the prophecy was honest from the beginning. They just couldn't bear to read it correctly. There's one more gift waiting for Dunk in the rain. Steely Pate, the armorer, has something for him. Tansel finished his shield before she fled to Dorne. The sigil Dunk asked for, an elm tree, a shooting star, a sunset, painted by the woman he defended and may never see again. Dunk, holding this beautiful thing, reads it as his own death notice. The star is falling, the sun is setting, night is coming. But Pate sees something entirely different. The elm's alive, man. See how green the leaves are? He tells Dunk what he's done to the shield itself. Reinforced the rim, strengthened the wood, made it heavier. It'll be heavier now, but stronger too. Pate is talking about the shield, but he might as well be talking about Dunk, about what this episode is doing to him, about what this show is doing to the franchise it was born from. Taking something familiar, layering weight onto it, and finding that the weight doesn't break it, it makes it mean more. Dawn comes. There are men outside Dunk's tent. Champions, real ones. Sir Humphrey Harding, strapped to his horse on account of the broken leg Aerion gave him, burning for revenge. Sir Robin Riceling, one-eyed and half-mad, who came because when the crown goes against the gods, Sir Robin goes against the crown.
Die the king's faithful servant. But when the crown goes against the gods, Sir Robin goes against the...
Humphrey Beesbury, Lionel Baratheon, the laughing storm himself, who seems to be in it mostly for the chaos, asking who gets to fight the Kingsguard with the delighted energy of someone who chose violence before breakfast. Then the detail that should stop you cold. When Dunk thanks Stephen for gathering them, Lionel has no idea who he's talking to. Who the fuck is Sir Stefan? Egg brought them. All of them.
The fuck is this Stevron? Yep. Boy found me.
While Dunk slept, a 12-year-old prince was running through the camp in the dark, knocking on tent flaps, begging knights to fight for the man he'd just been furious with hours earlier. The boy Dunk had just told, "It's a bit of bad luck we found each other," spent the night saving his life. That's who Egg is. Stefan? Stefan brought no one. They ride to the field. The mist hasn't burned off yet. The crowd gathers in silence. Arion 7 take their positions. Maekar, Daron, 3 Kingsguard, and 1 empty space. The space fills when Stefan Fossaway rides out, on Arion's side. He traded his sword for a lordship. Every word he spoke in that tent, every promise, every "you shan't die under my watch," bought and paid for. But I want you to think about something. Stefan said he'd recruit Lionel Baratheon and Lord Lannister. He brought no one. Lionel didn't even know his name. Every single champion on Dunk's side was recruited by Egg. So when exactly did Stefan switch? Was it really a last-minute offer from Arion, or was he working for the other side before Dunk ever sat across from him? Because if that's the case, then the moment Dunk felt hope for the first time all night, he was sitting across from his enemy. The rat in the dungeon was more honest company. The apple Stefan ate to the core the night before, that was a sigil declaration. House Fossaway's emblem is an apple. From this moment forward, Stefan's line will carry a red apple, the color of something bitten through to its rotten center. Raymond refuses to squire for his cousin, refuses to stand on the side of someone who sold his honor. "You traded your honor for a lordship," he spits. Then he turns to Dunk. "Knight me." Dunk hesitates.
So Duncan, knight me.
The hesitation carries a weight that goes far deeper than this moment, because the deepest secret in this entire series, the one the show keeps circling without ever confirming, is that Dunk himself may never have been properly knighted. Sir Arlen died on the road. Dunk says the old man knighted him before the end, but there were no witnesses. Dunk has moments, private, painful moments, where he wonders if it actually happened or if he just told himself it did because he needed it to be true. A man who might not be a knight being asked to make another man a knight. The system Dunk might have cheated to enter is now the system that might prevent a good man from entering alongside him. Watch Lionel Baratheon's face during this pause. Something flickers there. Concern or maybe recognition. Lionel steps in and knights Raymond himself, sparing Dunk from a moment that could have unraveled everything. First act as a knight, he grabs his shield. The red apple of House Fossaway will become a green apple by morning, fresh, unripe, still becoming what it's meant to be. Better green than wormy. A house that lasts for centuries in Westerosi history, born from one squire's disgust at his cousin's cowardice. They're still one short, 6 against 7. Arion insists that without a full 7, Dunk forfeits. No trial. Guilty. This is where Dunk does the only thing he has left. He speaks. He talks about Sir Arlen, the man who raised him, the man who taught him that being a knight was about protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. "He was a good man," Dunk says. "He taught me how to be a knight." Dunk looks out at the assembled nobility of the Reach, the lords, the champions, the men with their gleaming armor and their ancient houses, and he asks them a question that echoes across the entire franchise. Has courage deserted the noble houses of Westeros? Are there no true knights among you?
Are there no true knights among you?
Silence. Every empty space beside Dunk is the 7 passing sentence. This silence is execution in slow motion. 200 lords, and every one of them has done the arithmetic. Indifference kills more certainly than cruelty in Westeros. Cruelty at least requires someone to notice you exist. These men haven't decided Dunk is wrong. They've decided he's not their problem. The biggest knight in the crowd, Sir Otho, the brute of Bracken, looks at his son, looks at Dunk. The music starts to build. He stands up, he's enormous, the moment is swelling towards something, and he farts, loud, long. The crowd explodes in laughter. Now, this moment has divided the fandom. Some people hate it. They think it's cheap, juvenile, beneath the franchise. But the show is doing something very specific here, and it's been doing it since the first scene of the series. In Episode 1, the Game of Thrones theme, the most iconic piece of music in television fantasy, started to play. Then a character took a dump, and the theme cut off. The show taught its audience from minute one that sincerity would be undercut, that heroism would be deflated. For 3 episodes, the audience internalized that lesson. Expect the rug pull, expect the joke, expect the irony. In Episode 4, the show inverts the formula. The fart is the rug pull, the fart is the deflation. But this time, it's the setup for something real. Because the doors to the tournament field open, and in rides Prince Baelor Targaryen, the Hand of the King, the heir to the Iron Throne, in full armor, on horseback, riding for a hedge knight who sleeps in ditches and pets rats and talks to horses. This man protected the innocent, as every true knight must. Let the gods decide if he was right or wrong. And the Game of Thrones theme plays, uninterrupted, uncut. The sound of the entire franchise given in full to a man who has nothing except his honor. The show spent 3 episodes teaching you to expect irony, and then, at the exact moment the irony reaches its peak, a good man's speech answered by a fart, it delivers sincerity so pure and so earned that it breaks through every defense the audience has built up. Showrunner Ira Parker put it simply, this is fucking go time. Episode 1 used scatology to kill the theme. Episode 4 used scatology to launch it. The show taught its audience to flinch, and then, in the one moment that mattered most, it told them it was safe to feel something. Maekar stares at his brother. Have you taken leave of your senses? And here is what makes Baelor's choice resonate far beyond this episode, far beyond this show, across the entire sweep of Westeros history. There's a tactical detail buried in this moment that reveals how sharp Baelor really is. The 3 Kingsguard on Aerion's side are sworn to protect all princes of the blood. The moment Baelor steps onto Dunk's side, those Kingsguard are caught in an impossible bind. Their vows won't let them attack him. Baelor knows this. He's rewriting the math of the entire fight. This is someone with the moral compass of Ned Stark and the strategic mind to actually survive the game. Or so he believes. Watch Maekar on the other side of the field. Sam Spruill plays him as a soldier, a practical man, a father, someone who, as Spruill himself has said, lives with a sense of being second best, deficient compared to Baelor. He knows Aerion is a monster. Both Daeron and Egg call Aerion exactly that, but Maekar fights for his monstrous son anyway, because the alternative is admitting that his own blood is irredeemable, and a father cannot do that and survive. A soldier trapped between duty and love, and the tragedy is that both will lead him to the same place. Decades from now, in King's Landing, a man named Ned Stark will be dragged to the steps of a great sept to die for doing the right thing. In his final moments, the last word on his lips is Baelor. He was looking at the Sept of Baelor, but the Sept was named after a Targaryen king. Now, watching this episode, you understand what that name carries. The weight of a prince who rode against his own family for a stranger, who chose justice over blood, who proved that doing the right thing echoes through centuries, even when, especially when, it kills you. Ned shouts Baelor, because even in a universe where honor gets you killed, the idea of Baelor, the belief that doing the right thing matters, is the last thing worth reaching for. Now, what I'm about to discuss goes beyond what the show has revealed so far. If you haven't read Martin's novellas and want to experience the rest of this season completely fresh, skip ahead to the timestamp on screen. For everyone else, here's the shadow falling across this entire scene. The Game of Thrones theme plays like a celebration, and every note is also a goodbye. Because in the trial that follows, next episode, Baelor will be struck by his own brother's mace. Maekar won't mean to kill him, but the blow will crack his helm. Prince Baelor Breakspear, the best man in the Seven Kingdoms, will die in Dunk's arms. the dragon will fall on top of Dunk, and Dunk will be alive, and the dragon will be dead. Daeron's dream was honest from the beginning. We just couldn't bear to read it correctly. The prophecy was always about the one Targaryen who deserved to live. Martin's prophecies work like that, accurate down to the letter, devastating in the details you overlooked. The very thing that makes Baelor great, his willingness to stand for a stranger, is what walks him onto that field, just as Ned Stark's honor walked him onto those steps, just as it has walked every good man in this universe toward the blade they didn't see coming. In the novella, Martin gives Maekar these words afterward. "Some men will say I meant to kill my brother. The gods know it is a lie, but I will hear the whispers till the day I die. Strange to say, I do not recall the blow that broke his skull. Is that a mercy or a curse? Some of both, I think. Some of both." That might be the most human line George R.R. Martin has ever written. But Dunk survives. He always survives. That's his gift and his burden. The man who pet the rat in the dungeon will go on to become Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, one of the greatest knights in the history of Westeros. The boy who cried in a prince's clothing will become King Aegon V, Aegon the Unlikely, a ruler who remembers what it was like to sleep in ditches and share meals by a campfire with a hedge knight. The shield that Tansel painted, the elm tree, the shooting star, the sunset, Dunk carried it for the rest of his life. After he died, it found its way across Westeros to a castle on the island of Tarth, where it sat in an armory forgotten for decades, until one day a tall, awkward girl who dreamed of being a knight found it and painted its sigil on her own shield. Her name was Brienne. George R.R. Martin has confirmed she is Dunk's descendant. The night she knelt before Jaime Lannister and was knighted in a Game of Thrones episode literally titled A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, something that began in a muddy dungeon at Ashford Meadow reached across 100 years to lay a sword on her shoulder. The man who might never have been formally knighted sired a bloodline that produced the truest knight the franchise has ever known. The shield he thought was an omen of his death became the symbol of a legacy that outlasted every dragon, every war, every throne. Steely Pate was right about the shield. He was right about Dunk, and he was right about this show. It'll be heavier now, but stronger too. Next week, The Trial of Seven. Gods help us all.